Today I'll be diving into a topic that's been generating a lot of buzz on social media lately. It's the ketogenic, very low or no carb diet and its impact on weight loss. So in this video I'll be taking a closer look at the science behind how this diet works and weigh that against some of the long-term outcomes, asking the ultimate question: is weight loss on a keto diet sustainable? Let's start off by unpacking why the ketogenic diet seems to work for weight loss in the first place. Reason number one is cutting out calorie-dense foods. The most obvious reason is that people who go on a diet are cutting out all calorie-dense fast food and highly processed foods that tend to be high in sugar as well as in fat. And this kind of combination makes them the ultimate kryptonite for our taste buds, as we love to eat them. They're kind of addicting. That's why it's no wonder when we go on a diet and we cut out these ultra-processed foods that the scale in the bathroom drops. And reason number two is the depletion of glycogen stores in our liver and in our muscles. You can think of glycogen stores as our body's carb stash, where it can store up to approximately 0.9 kilograms of carbs for later energy use. So when you stop eating carbs, your body's using those that you already have for energy. And if you don't continue to fill them up and eat more carbs, these stores will stay depleted. And let me tell you, each gram of glycogen is estimated to be attached to around 2 to 4 grams of water weight. So if we stop eating carbs altogether, we will lose body weight in terms of the glycogen, as I said earlier, as well as the water in the first few days very easily. But here's the thing, the celebration on the bathroom scales after you lose a few kilos in the first few days on a ketogenic diet is probably simply just due to water and glycogen loss. To illustrate you this effect better, in this study they compared low carb to low fat diets head to head inside a metabolic ward. That basically means there was no sneaky eating within the study possible, as it was very controlled. Everyone had to sustain a 30% calorie deficit within the study. And the only difference was that the people in the low carb group cut out 60% of dietary carbs and the low fat group cut out 85% of dietary fats. In terms of weight, clearly we can see the low carb group is the winner. However, when we look at the actual fat loss, the story is turning on low carb, as the fat loss was greater in the group that reduced fat intake than carb intake. Now let's put the quick water weight loss aside and concentrate on a different aspect, because people on a keto diet have reported to feel less hunger. Which brings me to my reason number three on why this diet works: the appetite control through ketosis. So maybe the low carb diet is effective because total calories consumed is simply less than on a high carb, low fat diet. Now this meta-analysis looked at 48 unique weight loss trials involving over 7,000 participants in total, and it showed that low carb dieters seem to be having almost the same amount of weight loss after 12 months compared to low fat dieters, which seems to make the diets equally effective. One word to the studies, let's be honest here, it's a complicated comparison due to the high iteration rates and poor study adherence. The people were basically just told to eat a certain way and it wasn't in a controlled kind of setting. Which brings me to the sustainable aspect of this video, because long-term compliance is what makes any diet successful. Well, after all, the best and most successful weight loss diets are in fact lifestyles that can be adhered and maintained in the long run. So let's look at compliance challenges that can occur with a low carb keto diet. Because although it seems simple enough to only eat high fat and high protein foods and do DIY ketone level measurings in the blood to ensure you can stay in a state of ketosis, it actually can be quite tricky to do that long term, because how good can you forego sweet cravings, like fruit for example, which would, when you eat them, take you out of your ketosis? Because what I've found, even in the cases where ketogenic diets are used for medical reasons, like in the case to control seizures, compliance tended to drop after a few months. This suggests to me that while keto might offer appetite control benefits, the practical challenges of maintaining the diet and foregoing or nature of enjoying sweet or starchy foods those factors can outweigh the benefit of simply not being hungry physically. The second point I want to make here is that the metabolism seems to slow down on a ketogenic diet. Researchers found out that it seems to be the case that the body fat loss slows down on a ketogenic diet, and that coincides with increased protein utilization and loss of fat-free mass. That basically means that your body is using its own protein, aka muscle mass, for energy, which is obviously something you don't want to do on a diet, as most people have the goal on a diet to lose body fat while maintaining their muscle mass as good as possible. And another area I'd like to point out is gut health, as gut health could be another area where the ketogenic diet might fall short. The reason I'm making this statement is the lack of dietary fiber in prebiotics, which can lead to gut issues, including constipation. Which, funnily enough, is something carnivore dieters like to brag with, how little they have to poop, which is really interesting to me because I personally like pooping 2 to 3 times a day, but maybe that's just me. Anyway, let's move on with a more serious topic than my poops. Okay. And a more serious topic is heart health and all-cause mortality considerations on a low-carb ketogenic diet. When it comes to heart health, healthy carbohydrate sources seem to play a significant role. Because when looking at, for example, this systematic review, low-carb diets were associated with a significant higher risk of all-cause mortality, meaning people who live on a low-carb diet live on average significantly shorter lives compared to higher carb and lower fat diets. And from a heart disease perspective, the source of fat seems to matter, if it comes from an animal or if it comes from a plant. Based on the famous Harvard cohorts, eating more of an animal-based low-carb diet was associated with higher death rates from cardiovascular disease, which translated into a 50% higher risk of dying from a heart attack or stroke. Interestingly, no such association was found for lower carb diets based on plant fat sources. And it isn't just Harvard. Low carbohydrate dietary patterns favoring animal protein and fat from sources such as lamb, beef, pork and chicken were associated with higher mortality, whereas those that favored plant-derived protein and fat intake, like from sources such as vegetables, nuts, peanut butter and whole grain breads, were associated with lower mortality. And these are factors that I would personally argue should be essential when we consider the potential pros and cons before making a long-term dietary change. And I would like to add to that if a low-carb ketogenic diet really was a successful long-term weight loss approach, then the research would reflect that. But when researchers compare 20 studies where calories and protein intake were kept the exact same to see whether a low carb or a higher carb diet would work better for weight loss, the results showed this. Now, if a calorie is a calorie, and if a calorie would behave the same in our bodies, whether it came from fat or carbs, then these variations wouldn't be the results. As you can see, only one of these studies favored a low-carb diet, whereas most of the other studies clearly showed better weight loss results on a higher carb, lower fat diet. Now, if you want to know why carbohydrates are having a hard time converting into fat in the human body, check out this video next, because I explain here why a girl whose diet is low fat and super high in carb, I mean she puts sugar into her meals, can stay fit and lean without counting calories. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate it so much, and I see you next time if you like. Take care. Bye!